Hi, I'm Mike Yanessa. Welcome to another episode of Car Stories here on PCTV. I'm here in my showroom at 525 East High Street. My company name is Wheels in Motion. And in the showroom from time to time, we have different cars for sale, cars for display. If you were by recently, we had a beautiful 56 Thunderbird, turquoise and white. We just sold it last week. It got sold to a older couple in Austin, Texas. So a truck came in and picked it up, and the T-Bird's on its way to Austin, Texas. So now we have two new cars in the showroom. So let's see what we got. This one here, 1975 Cosworth Vega. 67,000 original miles, black, beautiful original interior, rust-free car from South Carolina. They only built 3,500 Cosworth Vegas in 1975 and 1976. And what they were they were a jazzed up Vega with special stripes, special wheels, and they had a dual overhead cam British engine in it, which had electronic fuel injection, electric fuel pump in the trunk, another fuel pump halfway up the car. For the time, it was pretty state-of-the-art to have an electronic fuel injection. Now, just about every new car has it. But just a rare car, there wasn't many of them, and one of the reasons was, for $900 more, you could have had a 75 Corvette. So it was an expensive Vega, there wasn't many sold. This one's here, it's all original. It was sitting for about 26 years in a private collection, and our job was to make it run. So fuel pump, fuel tank, new tires, wheel cylinders, radiator, tuned it up. We drove it maybe about 30 miles, runs beautiful. We took it to Duryea Day. The owner came that owned it, and he drove it to Duryea Day. It's the first time he drove the car ever. The car was delivered to his house. He put it in the garage 26 years ago, 1989. So that's the last time it was inspected. But just a nice car. If you know anybody looking for it, he's asking $9,900, and it's ready to go. Cosworth Vega. And another one that just came in, it's a member of the American Dream Corvette Club. The American Dream Corvette Club meets here once a month for their monthly meeting. It was a club started in the 70s. I was one of the first members of it. I had a '69 Corvette, and it's a Pottstown thing. One of the policemen in Pottstown, Neil Pentenbrink, started the club in about 75, maybe 76, and I was a member in 77. So this is a gentleman that belongs to the club and asked me if I would try to sell his car for him. He's an older gentleman, and he can't drive it anymore, and he's downsizing like a lot of them are. And it's a '69 350 4-speed convertible, beautiful body, beautiful chrome, black leather interior. It's not the original motor. It's a really worked 350 with a big cam in it, aluminum heads, and nice and solid underneath. He's asking $25,900 for it, and it's ready to go. I mean, there's some things you could do to it to make it your way, but the hard part's done: the body, the paint, the chrome, and the mechanics on it. So '69 Corvette Stingray, convertible, 4-speed. Again, anybody looking for a nice Corvette, stop by Wheels in Motion and check it out. So this is where we do most of our business. Some people, when they come to Wheels in Motion, they happen to come in the back door. We tell them to come in the front door and come over to the counter and see Nick. So if you're coming to stop and see us, come on in the front door. Somebody will be here to take care of you, and you can see, the cars for sale and what we offer. We have some accessories here. We have WeatherTech mats. That's a big one. You can see the boxes all over the place. We stock most of the trucks. We're a WeatherTech dealer. You don't pay shipping on them, and they run $109 for the front ones, and the back ones vary between probably $60 and $80. We get deliveries twice a week. So if you have a new car or have somebody that really cares about their car, WeatherTech floor mats. Made in America, really cool company to deal with. They sell mud flaps, they sell vent shades, battery tenders. Real good company with a good product. And the other thing right now that's going on is Pennzoil has a $25 rebate on oil changes. Synthetic oil change for most cars is $59.95. You come in, you get a coupon, you send it away in the mail, and they give you $25 to spend at Wheels of Motion on anything. Next oil change, on inspection. It's an unbeatable deal for the synthetic oil changes, and Pennzoil is the only oil that offers that right now. We are a Pennzoil dealer, and we use that oil in everything, whether it be synthetic or standard motor oil. Let's take a step in the office, and I have some things that I want to share with you about the automobile business.
Okay, great. Can I...
Let's take a step in the office, and I have some things that I want to share with you about the automobile business. Okay, so I've been in business in Pottstown for 35 years. I never had my own office. I never had a nice office. This office here, boy, if the walls could talk, was Sam Kaiser's office, and it was Dames's. Various people from the Dame Chevrolet occupied this office. And when they closed, this was the finance office where you came to do the paperwork when you bought your new car. So it's a great place for me to display some of my toys. As you see, I collect Hot Wheels and old toys, all Camaros. I mean, there's a couple Corvettes and a couple, but 90% of that collection is Camaros, and I started that 30 some years ago. And Camaro Hot Wheels, slot cars. I collect magazines from the Hot Rod magazines, Carcraft magazines. So this is where I kind of keep it all on display, and it's a conversation piece, and it's a nice office for me to come when I need to do paperwork. I'm not in here that much. I'm usually out in the shop working, but welcome to my office. So I know last month we didn't do a show on PCTV, and we had someone email us, Bill Moore from Bally, wondering why we didn't do a show. He said, in the email that we hoped that everything was okay and we were going to do more. Well, August was a very busy month for me, so we did one in July, we skipped August, and now we're here doing a new one again. We try to do a new show each month, and it's always on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. But if you get the Mercury throughout the week, it could be on Sunday morning, it could be on Thursday afternoon. Check in the Mercury and you'll see car stories, and you can tune in again and watch the show. The other thing is the internet, the PCTV network. You go on that, you go to car stories, and you can watch all the shows we've done in the past few years. And we really had some good ones. So if you're bored one day, go on the internet and check out some of our old shows. Because the last show we did was the dyno show up at AMS. We dyno Big Red's motor. So now tonight, it's going to be a little bit of a variety. And what I wanted to talk about tonight is some of the common problems in the auto business that, some people need to be aware of. So first thing we're going to talk about is state inspection. State inspection has been in Pennsylvania for years. And then they added the emission program. And a lot of people don't realize that you can get your car inspected 3 months before it's actually due. And you're getting 15 months out of your inspection instead of 12 for the same price. So you're not losing anything. And the ideal thing, especially if you have an older car, is to get it in early in case it needs a ton of work, or in case it has problems. You could either do a little bit at a time, or you could get it done ahead of time so that the last week of the month we're not running around trying to get everybody's car done. So remember that. You can get your car done 3 months before it's actually due on the sticker. And the emissions, unless it's exempt, we can also do that. A common problem we have with the emission program is that old check engine light that all of us hate to see come on. If the check engine light is on and it has several issues, we have to fix that, and it takes time. So again, if the check engine light's on, get it in early so we can get it repaired properly so it'll pass emissions. And check engine lights sometimes can be tricky. If you read your own code, or you stop at a local auto store and read the code, for example, and it comes up oxygen sensor. Sometimes the oxygen sensor is bad, and sometimes there's something else wrong that's making the oxygen sensor go crazy. For example, if you had a fouled spark plug or a bad wire, raw gasoline's going through the exhaust system and it's tripping the oxygen sensor code. So They can be tricky sometimes. They are a pain. And the most common thing we hear is like, well, it needed an oxygen sensor and now the check engine light came back on again. Well, there's 4 oxygen sensors in most cars. And some of the foreign cars and some of the new cars, they're a couple $100 a piece. In the old days, we only had 1 and it was $35. Nowadays, we have 4. There's about 17 sensors on a car for the check engine light, and you could have 1 bad, you could have 3 bad. Once you do address the problem and fix the problem, we still can't inspect it or emission it until the car is driven. And it has to be driven and to reset all the monitors, meaning that you can't cheat by this emission program like you used to by disconnecting the battery. You have to drive the car through several days, several miles, until it sees all these systems are working, then it will pass emissions. So again, if it's the day before the 31st of the month, I have to drive it or you have to drive it illegally. There's no provision the state has to provide to drive this car or put an emission sticker on this car. The only solution is to put miles on it and try to get it past emissions. So it's a common problem that we explain, and I thought it was an important point to bring up tonight on Car Stories about inspection, emissions, and check engine lights. And the other thing is that maintenance on new cars, very important. Don't feel like you're wasting your money. If you maintain a vehicle and do spark plugs and cabin air filter and filters as per manufacturer's schedule, your car will last you for a longer time, and you'll avoid paying more later. So my particular truck is a 2003. I'm a fanatic for maintenance. I've spent probably thousands of dollars over the years doing preventive maintenance, but it has 130,000 miles on it. It's still in good shape. And in that way, you don't get hit with that big giant bill when everything breaks at once. You're kind of spending a couple hundred here, a couple hundred there, keeping it in tip-top shape. And the price of a new car today or a new truck, it's cheaper to keep them in good shape and keep them longer. They say the average person now keeps a car 11 years, which I found amazing. Years ago, that was unheard of. So anyway, inspections, emissions, preventive maintenance, very important. And one thing that I always tell people, which is hard for me to get the word out, is that we don't work on just old cars here. We work on new cars. We work on anything, BMWs, Mercedes, anything. If we don't have the equipment, or we're not comfortable with working on a brand new Audi Quattro, whatever, then we will tell you to go to the dealer, or you would go to the dealer, because some of the stuff we cannot work on. We don't have the tools, or they don't release the information. They hold it under a patent that the average garage doesn't get. So a little bit on regular service. Now, collision. Like I said, we do collision work on your new Honda, your new Chevy, not just old car. Yeah. So, and insurance company, the insurance accident claim can be very confusing and very overwhelming to a customer. The best thing I can tell you is there's a new commercial out for Liberty Mutual, and there's a girl on there, and she talks about, I took all this time to pick my car, to pick the color, to pick the model, 4-door, automatic, 4-cylinder. I searched everywhere for the best deal. And then you buy the car and you just get insurance on it. Nobody takes the time on their old car or their new car to analyze their insurance policy, meaning that usually you just pick the cheapest. But if you don't have rental coverage and it gets into an accident, it's tough, because the car's been here for a week or two, we're waiting for parts, and you can't get around. Rental coverage on your regular car is probably $20, $30, $50 a year. Very important. The amount of your deductible. I know we like to save money, but if you do have an accident, I recommend $500 deductible. Some people have $2,000 deductible, and that's a lot of money to come up with if you're in a fender bender. So look at your insurance policies on your new car, look at your insurance policies on your old car, and make sure that the values are up and that you have rental coverage, and just check them over that you have the proper coverage, so if you ever need to use it, you're not shocked. Because one of the things we get here a lot of times is people will be impatient that their car is not done. It's been 2 weeks, it's been 3 weeks. Unfortunately, through the insurance process, weekends, adjusters, we have to wait for an adjuster to come out to approve additional work before we can touch the car. Sometimes they're out in a day, sometimes they're out in 5 days. We can't straighten the frame or order that part until they come out and approve it. So it delays the repair process. So just like I said, these are some of the things that I found in business that we need to explain because, yes, it does take 2-3 weeks sometimes to fix your car. And to you, it might just be a bumper or fender. But number one, we want to fix it right. We want to fix it back that it never looks like it was hit. And two, we have to follow your particular insurance policy. Whatever brand it is, they're all different. Some of them use aftermarket parts, some of them use used parts, some of them use new parts. It just depends how the policy is written. So these are the questions you want to ask your insurance agent. What kind of coverage do I have? My son Nick was hit by a drunk driver a few months back in his Cadillac. And he owed more on it than the insurance company would pay. In the old days, and I'm one of them people that say they have to pay you what another one's going for. No, they don't. All the insurance companies today use the same formula. It's not Kelley Blue Book, it's not NADA. It's a formula that they use and they give you that number and they won't budge. So Nick was $3,000 short on his Cadillac and he had to come up with that money. That's called gap insurance. You might not think you need it, but in his case, he wished he would have got it because it wasn't his fault. The other guy hit him and he fought and fought with his insurance company and with the other guy's insurance company. And the bottom line was he was short on his insurance because they would only give him X amount of dollars. So I just like to share that with you tonight and take the time to look at your insurance policies on all your cars and your house and everything else and make sure you have the proper coverage. So that's enough of that. Now, if you watched last month's show, you saw me up at AMS dynoing Big Red's motor. So let's go back in the shop and I'll show you how we're making out with putting that motor back in the car. All right, so we're back in the shop now, but there's one thing I forgot to tell you about insurance when I was in my office. And I hear this a lot. The insurance companies try to direct you towards their repair shop. That's called steering, and it's illegal. Okay, many people come in, well, I was in an accident and the company made me take it to their body shop. You can take it anywhere you want. You get the guarantee, you get everything that you would at their preferred shops, okay? So that's important. If you want it done above the standard production shop, you bring it to Wheels of Motion or bring it to a shop that you like. You don't have to take it to their shop. So remember that. And I hope this insurance and the thing about state inspection helps everybody understand a little bit more about the process. So now we're in the shop and this car side of me is Big Red. And if you watched other shows, I'll give you a brief history of Big Red. On the other shows I've talked about it. This was my wife's first car when she was 15. She bought it in 1977. I bought it from her in 1979. It went through various stages over its life, different paint jobs, raced it, small block, big block, stick shift, automatic. 1985, this was my first frame-up restoration. And to give you that thing, in 1985, I did everything on this car except Larry Roberts built the motor and Ed Quay did the roll bar. I did the body work, I did the paint, my father and I did it at my shop. Did the seat covers, headliner, rear, transmission, wiring, everything. I had over $20,000 in this car in 1985. I could have bought a real nice Z28 for 10. So just to give you an idea, when you're building these classic cars sometimes, you get a lot of money into them. But if it's what you really want, which is this is what I really wanted, it's worth it. Money doesn't really mean anything. And now it's, 38 years later, and the $20,000 doesn't seem like anything. But back then, it was a lot of money. So the first time I built the car, I'm not saying the first time, 1985 when I built the car, It was totally done. Rally Sport, which is hideaway headlights, electric windows, tilt wheel, deluxe interior, small block, automatic, and I raced it. But it was street legal from 1985 till 2010. It's been in my garage at home since 2010 with no motor in it. Last month, you saw us at AMS. We built a 327 Cross Ram and dynoed it up there and tuned it up, got it ready. Now we just sat it in the car. So there it is. We got a bunch of the headers hooked up and a bunch of the electrical stuff cleaned up and the engine compartment. Now the engine compartment is not original, meaning that I used trunk paint, which is that speckled paint on the firewall in 1985. I put lacquer paint on the inner fender wells and rubbed it out so it was shiny. I painted all the steering components gray. So it's really neat to work on this car. When I was first working on it, I was like, wow, I was 26 years old the first time I did this, and here I am doing it again. So what I did is I restored it the way I did it the first time. I used lacquer paint on the fender wells. I used trunk paint there. I painted everything gray, just like 1985. I didn't restore it the way GM did it or the way it was done at the factory. I restored it back to the way I did it back then, the engine compartment. But the motor never had a cross ram in it, never had two carburetors, and now it's in there. One of the other things is I turned it back to a 4-speed. I always wanted an M22 rock crusher. That was the ultimate stick shift back in the day. And I always wanted a super shifter. So there's a company now that reproduces the Muncie 4-speed cases that are beefier. They reinforced them and made them handle up to 850 horsepower. They have Italian gear sets in them that are very strong, and you can pick your gears. So I have one of those custom M22 rock crushers with a 268 first gear with the super shifter that I always wanted. It was on my bucket list, and that's what's in the car now. It's hooked up, the drive shaft in, and it's ready to go. But what I want you to see is why super shifters were so rare, because look what you have to do to the floor to get them to work. Okay, so now we're inside Big Red. As you can see, the seats are ripped and she's been used for a long time in drag racing. But what I wanted to show you was the NOS super shifter that I bought at a flea market. This was the ultimate shifter back in the day, but look what we had to do to the floor to get that to work. That's why nobody used these. They all used Competition Plus shifters, because you can't run a console and you have to hack the floor up to get that rod to clear, because it's all in a straight line. It's not like a Competition Plus where the rods are bent. So you get a really positive shift, you can't miss a gear, and the shifter, if you notice, is right aside of the seat. It's not centered in the hump like a normal shifter. So there it is, the M22 with a super shifter in it, with a reverse lockout in Big Red. So anyhow, this Lakewood box here, I wanted to show this because this is a NOS Lakewood bell housing, blow-proof bell housing, which you should have with a high horsepower stick shift car. This was in a friend of mine's rafters since the 70s that he bought and never used. So it's in the car now. It's where the clutch goes. You can see the picture, but it's just really cool because it's from back in the 60s, 70s, Lakewood blow-proof bell housing. In the motor, what I want this to look like, General Motors had a Cross Ram Z28 intake that was very similar. The air cleaner, that is General Motors. The fuel line, General Motors. But it has an Offenhauser intake and it has these quick fuel Holley carburetors. So what I want though is when you open the hood or look underneath the car, I want the car to look like a 69Z. Or 68, but the Cross Ram came out in 69 actually. So they were sold over the counter and they never were put on a car from the factory. If you ordered a 69 with a Cross Ram, it was in the trunk and they were installed at the dealership. And what a lot of guys did when these first came out with their 68Z, they went to the Chevy dealer, bought them over the counter and put them on. So this is going to have a fan shroud, the alternator is going to be in the stock location. So when you open the hood, it appears to be an original Z28 Cross Ram, but it's going to have some speed equipment and some modifications on it. But I just thought it was cool to show that old Lakewood bell housing box. And another old item right here, this was actually on my car. This is a cool can. And this was on the car probably for about 10 years, and then we took it off. And what it is, it's your fuel line that comes from the fuel pump to the carburetor, and we'd fill these up at the races with ice. And the ice would cool the fuel and make the car go faster. And then when you were done, there's a drain on the bottom, you drain the water out and put more ice in. The only thing wrong with it is when you're bracket racing, it was very hard to consistently have the right amount of ice in it. So yeah, the car would be faster, but if you forgot to put ice in it or it melted real quick, the car would slow down and you'd lose, because bracket racing is about running the number, not about going fast. So this was off the car for many years, but I'm going to put that back on, a little bit of nostalgia, and just for looks, I'm not going to use ice in it, but that's a cool can from 60s, 70s. Moroso made this one. So Big Red's coming along good. We hope to get the motor running, get the front end back together, and get it to the track yet this year and see what she runs. And then I'll spend all winter redoing the seats and the carpet and some of the looks of the car, making it back in shape again. Like I said, you got to maintain your cars and keep them nice, and you'll have them for a long time, just like this one. Another project here at Wheels in Motion is a 1969 Rambler Scrambler. We've had this car for quite a few years. We did the body work on it. We put quarter panels on it. The hardest part about building this car, it was a drag car all its life, and when the customer got it, it was incomplete. And Rambler parts, AMC parts, Nash parts, they call it, are very hard to get at. With a Camaro or a Corvette or a Chevelle or a Mustang, if you have money, you open up the catalog, you order the parts. It's not that way with a AMC. So over the years, we've been gathering parts, the customer's gathering parts, and slowly it's coming together. But this is another Cross Ram, but this is the AMC version. It's an Edelbrock intake made for American Motors. It was sold through American Motors with their part number on it. It's a 390 engine. It's the original engine from this car. It just came back from Doug Meyer's machine. My good friend Smokey and Doug rebuilt it, put a radical camshaft in it, put the Cross Ram on it. We got it back. We painted it with, and including my engine, is painted with Eastwood ceramic paint. It's really not any more expensive than spray cans, and it goes on beautifully. It's the correct color that they painted them in 1969, and it just gives a beautiful, durable finish. So we painted the block, mocking up the headers, Edelbrock valve covers, again, the quick fuel carburetors, which are very reasonable compared to Holley's, and they have clear sight plugs, they have adjustable air bleeds. They're really meant for racing. And again, they're not original for 1969, but they will really work well on this application. So 390 AMC motor, fully built, painted. This is also going to go to the dyno. But we have other stuff in the shop tonight, but unfortunately, we're out of time. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Remember to watch us on the PCTV network. You can watch it streaming, or you can look at the old episodes. And every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, tune in to Car Stories on PCTV. Thank you.